team went from 3 people to 10 people. Then we started to put a plan to build another satellite, and then it grew to about 40 people. And then from 40 people, we decided, we need to build those satellites in the UAE. So we started to build the facilities here in the UAE, and the team also grew to about 70 or 80 people that are based here in the UAE, and they were starting to learn how to develop these satellites.
Welcome back on a Trending Echoes. Today episode is one on the UAE space exploration journey. We delve into how this nation transformed from desert landscape to stellar achievement, led by Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Discovering the milestone from the launching the first Emirati-made satellite, KhalifaSat, to sending Humaid Al Marri to the space center. Join us with a special guest, His Excellency Salem Al Marri, the Director General of Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center, as we explore the UAE space triumph and future vision. I'm your host, Sultan Majid Al Ali, the Director of Global Barometer and a researcher in Trends Research and Advisory. Welcome to our podcast episode on Trending Echoes. Today we have a pioneer guest who witnessed the transition and turning point in the history of the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency Salem Al Marri, who witnessed from Mohammed bin Rashid, the Director General of Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. Your Excellency, we are more than welcome in Trending Echoes.
Thank you very much for having me.
We are extremely honored, and based on our recent conversation, you have seen how the UAE and that big shift and turning point in terms of moving from the ground to the space. And it has been almost like 18 years. Could you please share with us how was that experience?
Yeah, again, thank you for having me. And I think when we look at the journey of the last 18, close to 20 years of the UAE in space, I'll focus on the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. The way I see it is pretty much a dream come true. So I was fortunate to be part of the first team that was selected and one of the first employees to work at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. So I've been able to witness this growth from 2005 all the way till today, and I can remember, the directions, the directives that were given by their highnesses. What was expected and all of those elements. And when we started, it was very small. Everything starts small. You got to start somewhere. So we were 3 people. If you think about it as a center.
You started with 3 people.
3 people that started. And we were looking at a way basically to participate in building satellites. Mm-hmm. So previously, the UAE was receiving data from satellites, whichever satellites they are. And usually they would be American or European or Asian satellites, and we'd buy the data from them and then utilize that data for different purposes. So satellite data is very important. So the idea was, why don't we try to work on developing our own satellite, owning a satellite, so that we don't have to then buy data from other sources. We'll have our own source of data. But why don't we try and also build that satellite? Mm-hmm. And that's really how it started. Mm-hmm. And from those small beginnings, we decided to send a team to South Korea. I was with them on a technology transfer program to build our first satellite. And from there, of course, it's really grown very fast. So, the team went from 3 people to 10 people. Then we started to put a plan to build another satellite. And then it grew to about 40 people. And then from 40 people, we decided, we need to build those satellites in the UAE. So we started to build the facilities here in the UAE. And the team also grew to about 70 or 80 people that are based here in the UAE, and they were starting to learn how to develop these satellites. And then when we succeeded in that, KhalifaSat, it's named after His Highness Tayyib Allah Thara Sheikh Khalifa. It was a big moment for us. First of all, it's a satellite that had the president's name, and then it was a satellite that was built for the first time in the UAE with UAE participation. For me, that was the turning point. And it kind of boomed from there and went to Mars, Moon, astronauts, space stations, and a much, much bigger center and a much, much bigger field in the UAE now.
MashaAllah, I think this is, how did you feel when that mission was accomplished, building KhalifaSat and sent it out?
For me, it's always a mixture of happiness and relief. So when you're working on something for 5 or 6 years, and you're going, with the team, you're getting involved in, this cable has to go here, and this device, and does everything work together? And it's, 10,000 pieces, hundreds of electronics, all having to kind of work together and support each other to produce a product. The question that you ask yourself, number one, will it work? You've done all your testing, you've done everything. Inshallah, it will work in space, because the space environment is different than the Earth environment. So when it works, it's happiness, of course. And then the relief is all of that work of 5 or 6 years is going to launch into space. And it takes 15 minutes from ignition of the rocket to getting into your orbit in space. And that 15 minutes is the most dangerous part of your journey. Anything can happen. Rockets regularly explode, and you lose all of your work. And then you might also be injected in an incorrect orbit. So you wanted to be at 600 kilometers above Earth, but you got injected into 450. So your whole concept of operations changes. Can the satellite work in that orbit? Because it was designed for another orbit. So once you succeed in that 15 minutes, it's relief. Okay, great. We're in our orbit and we're working. Alhamdulillah, al-umur tayyiba. KhalifaSat, has been working very well now for 6 years. So, we're very happy with that. And it's in orbit currently, imaging the UAE and the world, providing data for many different purposes. So that's kind of a continuation. So I would say happiness and relief, basically.
Happiness and relief. It is a relief. It was a relief and happiness for the whole UAE community, if I don't miss my guess. Now, the second mission was I think one of the mission that has widely known audience, and it was really recognized by all level of leaders and communities, was the Hope probe. And it seems they have sent data from the Mars. And what are these data in particular, and how we can utilize it here on the ground?
Yeah, that's a great question. And before I jump into that, I'll just give a little bit of a story of how we went into HOPE. So, as I said previously, we're building these satellites, which are Earth observing satellites. So they're satellites which orbit Earth very close, about 600 kilometers, and they image Earth. And then when we succeeded in starting with KhalifaSat, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid visited the center and sat down with us and was celebrating with us the success of our previous satellite and the kickoff of KhalifaSat. And he said to us, and I was in the room there and I remember this very clearly, is there something more challenging that we can do? So we were thinking in lines, maybe we can build 2 satellites that orbit at the same time, or higher resolution, better quality. And he came up, why don't we think about exploration? Why don't we look at, sending something very far away? Something, like a probe to Mars. So we were slightly shocked. We were not expecting to even think about that, because we're 600 kilometers above Earth. That's where we were working for the past 10 years at that time. Going to Mars is 400 million kilometers away. So when you're looking at that and you're thinking, look at that distance, that jump. It is a huge jump. And so he tasked us to a 100-day study. So we did a study. We looked at how could we possibly do this with the same spirit of knowledge transfer, joint development, learning from others, but building capabilities, and then actually succeeding in that. And after that 100-day study, we said, this is the way we think we can do it. And we got the trust from the President, the Prime Minister, and we proceeded with that. Of course, then we launched it, alhamdulillah, successfully. It took about 9 months to get to Mars. That's very far. Once it's around Mars, which it is now, it's the goal of this mission was to study the Martian atmosphere. So why are we studying the atmosphere? We're studying to see what happened to Mars's atmosphere. So was Mars a place that had life? Did it have water on the surface? Could humans or life potentially live there in the future? So you need to know what happened to the atmosphere. Today on Earth we have a very thin atmosphere, but that atmosphere and those layers is what's protecting us. It's what's keeping the oxygen at a certain level. It's what's keeping all those gases inside our planet. The Mars Hope probe is studying what happened to Mars's atmosphere. Why is it losing its atmosphere? And it's the first time that a probe is sent to, first of all, only study that and study it on the whole planet. So previously there were probes that would study a segment of the planet at a certain time. Mars Hope is studying the whole planet on a 24-hour cycle, so a full day cycle. So that is something that we are very proud of, because this data is very useful for people to study the planet.
I'm guessing you have chosen Mars in order because it has the same environment as the Earth, and therefore you could study Mars and know the future of the Earth under the circumstances of the climate change and this stuff.
I mean that's one element. So Mars is similar to Earth. It's close. It's the closest planet to us. So it's our little brother, we can say, or little sister, whatever you'd like. And it's a planet that has fascinated humans for centuries, because you can see it with the naked eye. It's one of the first planets that we've seen. It is a mystery. Could we potentially live there? If there is a chance for us to be a multi-planetary species, Mars or the moon, of course, is not a planet, but Mars would be a good candidate. And then, what happened to its atmosphere? Is that something that could potentially happen to Earth? These are questions that scientists are always pondering and asking. And of course, understanding what happened to other planets gives us a lot of knowledge about our own planet.
I think there was a movie called The Martian. This might be one of the reasons that people always link Interstellar to The Martian, to these kind of journeys. But mashallah, it's fascinating. I think even when we were at COP28, if I don't miss my guess, there was the desertation happening, and they've seen the previous landscape, how the trees were gone, and the landscape, thanks to these satellites. It is, mashallah, massive mission, mashallah. And moving to our second question is about Hazza Al Mansouri trip to the ISS. Was the UAE first time sending someone to the space? And what were the main aim for that mission, and how it shaped the future of these ideas, and how did that, let us call it, added some values to the UAE by sending Hazza Al Mansouri to the ISS?
Yeah, again, this is was a very big mission for us. And to kind of talk about the UAE aims, let's talk about how this program was kicked off. So we had, again, a visit by Their Highnesses. It was in 2016, I believe, or 2017. So around that time, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan Rais al-Dawla, ونائب Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum visited the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center around that time. And the visit was to review the progress of KhalifaSat, look at the progress of the Emirates Mars mission, and discuss potential future missions. And during that mission, the idea was discussed with Their Highnesses about human spaceflight and the benefits of this. And we got the direction from the President and Prime Minister to go ahead and proceed with this. And really the discussion was that we as Arabs have a strong affinity with space. As we know, most of the stars are named after Arabic names. Astronomy is part of our culture, Arab-Islamic culture. But in terms of human spaceflight, we had a few missions in the 80s, one from Prince Sultan bin Salman in 1985, and one from Mohammed Faras, a Syrian Air Force major, in 1987. And from 1987 until that time, 2007, no Arabs went to space. So that's a gap of 30 years. The UAE wanted to change that. And the UAE wanted to launch a program to train and prepare astronauts to go to space, but also do it in a sustainable way. So we don't want a single mission or one or two missions and then we stop. No, we have to have a program. And the program would include selecting astronauts, training those astronauts, and then all of the science and research which comes with having a human spaceflight program. So the kickoff was with Hazzat's mission. We had 4,025 people, if I'm not mistaken, that applied to the program. And from those 4,000 people, it took us about 11 months to select Hazza Al Mansouri and Sultan Nihadi. And once we selected them, we started a program with Russia to train them. We learned a lot from our Russian partners in Roscosmos and launched Hazza on the first mission. It was about an 8-day short duration mission. We had 16 experiments, and that mission really built up a lot of capabilities. How to select astronauts, how to train them, how to prepare for missions, how to operate human spaceflight missions, and then also the science. So what's the benefit of these missions? So through that mission, we were able to set up science centers in many universities here in the UAE. We did programs with Jamiat Khalifa, Jamiat Mohammed bin Rashid Al Tib, with UAE University, with the higher colleges of technology on experiments that the astronaut would do in space, so microgravity experiments. And that setup then, of course, really helped us for the future missions. So from that mission, we were able to set up, now we have a team of about 85 people that are dedicated to human spaceflight. They operate the missions, they control the science, they do all the different programs, and really that was the start for us.
So we may call this like this was the infrastructure in order to build on the human capacity, and therefore the scientists and everything will come I think one of this project from Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center is the Mohammed bin Zayed satellite. Could you please elaborate about that satellite in particular?
Yeah, so Mohammed bin Zayed satellite is the next satellite after KhalifaSat. So it's again an Earth observation satellite. It's designed to take images of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And those images will be used for many different applications. So when we take these images, we use them for disaster monitoring. La samhallah, there's a disaster. We're able to most probably have an image, an old image of the area. Then we take a new image of that area. And then we can see in an instant what has changed after that disaster. We are able to provide those images to the people on the ground, the people that are trying to help and the survivors of that disaster, with the latest image, and that's really useful for them. So sometimes within hours we're able to give them a whole map of the area after flood or after an earthquake. So we also use it for environmental purposes. Mm-hmm. So we monitor our coastline. Mm-hmm. We monitor agriculture. We look at the number of palm trees in the UAE. We look at the health of these palm trees in the UAE. We monitor construction projects.
So you see the health of palm trees through this satellite.
Yeah, so the way we do it is we it's not an image that you see, for example, from your iPhone. Mm-hmm. This is an image that is taken in spectral bands. So some of the spectral bands are near infrared or far infrared, mm-hmm. or ultraviolet. Mm-hmm. And those bands are able to give us reflectance of mm-hmm. chlorophyll. Mm-hmm. So we're able to see the level of chlorophyll in a certain tree. So we can say, mm-hmm. It seems to be lower in this batch of trees, which means those trees are weaker. There's an issue there. Maybe they need more water. Mm-hmm. Maybe there's, some sickness in that tree. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the farmers can go and have a look and see what's going on. If you look at mass level agriculture or big wheat fields, you want to know where you're putting too much water, too little water. These types of applications are very useful. Mm-hmm. So there are hundreds of applications that you can use this data for. So this is why the UAE is doing that. Mm-hmm. And MBZSat is very unique because it's fully designed in the UAE, fully assembled and built at the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center. But there's one key difference. Today, after 20 years of working in this field, we've been able to get UAE industry to build the satellite. So all of the aluminium, all of the aluminium is from EGA. It's a very big aluminium company in the UAE. Mm-hmm. Also, all of the structure is from Strata in Al Ain. They build aircraft parts. They build aircraft structures. Today, they build satellite structures. Mm-hmm. All of the cabling is from companies that are working in Jebel Ali, private companies. Mm-hmm. All of the electronics are built in companies that are part of the Edge Group. So they work in military field, but they also can work in the satellite field. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the software is done with UAE startup companies. Mm-hmm. So this is a Emirati satellite built by Emirati industry. This is the first time this happens in the UAE. I'm not sure about the region, but I can definitely guarantee it's the first time it happens in the UAE. Mm-hmm. So today our private sector companies that are working in oil and gas, maybe military, aluminium structures, and are very successful, they've been able to slightly retool and work with us over the years to get it up to space standard and send it to space. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm personally very proud of. I can say this is made in the UAE.
MashaAllah, that's why I think on behalf of all Emiratis we raise the hat for you, and it is a relief, as you have mentioned previously. I think one of the other projects that you're handling now was the UAE's part of the Gateway to Lunar Space Station project with the Emirati airlock. So can you explain this project in particular?
This is a very large project, and this is, I would say, a very unique project for the UAE. So the difference in this project is that this is, for the first time, we are going into a fully international collaboration. So the UAE on its own, if you're looking at, let's say, building the International Space Station, it's a very large space station that Sultan Al-Niyadi and Hazza Al-Mansouri visited and worked and lived there. It's about the size of a football field, and it costs about $250 billion US. So it's a huge cost, and it's built by 15 countries. Why is it built by 15 countries? Because maybe no one country can do that on its own with that size. Now fast forward, what's after the space station? What's next? That space station has been in space for 30 years, and it will be decommissioned most probably by 2030. So the next space station is the Gateway. It's slightly smaller. It's about half the size or a third, but it's huge. And it's the first time we'll have a space station around the moon. So it will be orbiting the moon. It's costing, hundreds of billions of dollars again. And international collaboration is key to these types of projects. So there are 14 countries building it. The UAE is the 15th country. We will provide the Emirates airlock, which is a key component for the station. This component is where astronauts exit the station to do a spacewalk. It's where you have a science airlock where any scientific experiments or satellites that you want to launch are used to exit the actual space station. So you need an airlock to basically regulate the pressurized volume where humans can live with oxygen in an environment like this, and the external environment of space, which would kill anybody. So how do you move things from this to this? This is why you have an airlock. So this is what the UAE will build. And of course, us being able to join this partnership showcases the success of the strategy of our leadership in developing the space program. So we've been able to gain a lot of trust working with entities such as NASA, the European Space Agency, the Japanese Space Agency, and the Canadian Space Agency. Today, those agencies are investing billions in building the space station, and they trust the UAE to be a part of that. Of course, once we do that, the question is, why are you doing that? It's going to be science around the moon. It's going to be getting humans back to the moon, understanding how to live and work for long periods on the surface of the moon and around the moon is very different than Earth. And the UAE will have seats to the gateway. So through this investment, we are guaranteed that we'll have an Emirati who will go to the moon, which I'm very proud of.
Yeah, mashallah, mashallah. And moving to the moon and then to the Mars, I think Mars 2117 aims to set up the first human settlement and how this project, I'm sure you will receive this question, that are there any aliens in Mars?
Yeah, I always receive that. So Mars 2117 is a strategy. So it's an idea of that the UAE wants to invest in space for a long period of time, for the next 100 years. It's part of our investment. It's going to be part of our DNA. And that strategy is, can we have a settlement on the surface of Mars within 100 years? And going to, the current investments that we're doing, we do it in 5 to 10 year cycles. So we've invested in rovers around the moon. So those are robots going to the moon. Eventually those robots would go to Mars. And we're also investing in Gateway. So Gateway is sending humans to the moon and using that station to get to Mars. So to answer your question of, Mars 2117, what we are doing in terms of rovers and what we are doing in terms of the Gateway space station, the Emirates airlock, is 10-year plans towards that goal. And we expect, hopefully, inshallah, humans will get to Mars for the first time in the 2040s or 2050s by using the infrastructure that is being built around the moon today. Now, are there aliens? I think, depends what you define as aliens. So anything sent to Mars or the moon is always looking for previous signs of life. Today, of course, we've never found any active life or signs of life on other celestial bodies. But I think, at some point we may find something. Maybe not on Mars, but somewhere else.
Maybe somewhere else, maybe. And this is our final question, and this is perhaps, I think, one of the fruitful questions that people will always would like to learn about. What is your specific advice for those who will be involved in a space education or a space management and this stuff?
If you're planning to join the space industry, or if you want to work in the space industry, the first thing, you have to know that this is your passion. So I think you have to like it. You have to love what you're doing. So always go towards something that you enjoy doing, that you like doing. The reason I say that, and of course, that's maybe a hard thing to kind of realize when you're 18 or 15 or 16. But if you have a passion for it, and you know you have a passion for it, then when you work in that field, you've pretty much achieved 80% of all of what you have to do, because then everything that you're doing is from passion, it's from excitement, and you'll be able to really do a good job in what you're doing. So, and I've seen this very clearly. If people come and work at the Mohammed Barasha Space Center, and it's a job, they applied in 10 places, and this was the one that responded, and they like it, that's great. They do great, and they'll do it. But if it's the place that you want to work, it's your passion. And I give examples of people like Sultan al-Niyadi and Hazza al-Mansouri. If you ask them, it's their passion. It's been their dream since they've been kids to become astronauts and go to space. Then it's fun for them. And it's not a job. And they're able to really give 100 times more than you would expect, because they're doing something they love and enjoy. Similar to when you're playing football or you're doing something, you're not thinking of that as a job. So if you're able to do that in any field, regardless if it's space, that would be my best advice, to try and find something that you are passionate about. My second piece of advice, if you'll allow me, is hard work. So, passion, vision, plans are all great. But without hard work, they're not going to be achievable. So you really have to put the time in. You have to put the effort. If you love what you do and you have a great plan and a great strategy and you put the time and effort to achieve it, you'll achieve your goals. You might fail. I've failed many times in my life. You may face challenges. You may face people that are telling you that's not possible or that's not going to happen. And we've seen that many times. What are you guys doing? You're going to Mars. Is that really going to happen? And then when it happens, they're like, wow, you guys did it. So you will face a lot of these challenges. But if you have the hard work, the passion, the strategy, and then the vision to get it done, you will be able to, I would say, put that effort in and achieve all your objectives. So those are really two things that I would like to give to the youth. Try and find something that you really love to do, and then work hard to achieve your objectives.
So this is the secret recipe: the hard work and the ambition to do that hard work.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, yeah. And of course, you love doing it. So if you ask people at the Humaid Al Marri Space Center, we have about 250 people. Most of them, I would say, hopefully all of them, inshallah, but I would say most of them love what they do. They love space. They love Star Trek. They love Star Wars. They love The Martian. They love Interstellar. They feel that this is part of their DNA, and then they just work day and night, and they enjoy it.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Starting from 3 engineers, perhaps, at Mohammed bin Rashid, and now we have completed, mashallah, 200 people. Your Excellency, you have witnessed indeed a successful story, one of the most successful story, I guess, in the United Arab Emirates. Thank you for answering these questions, and I'd like to congratulate you for completing 18 years of success. Thank you very much. This was the most fruitful podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you.